On.
Coming to you live from deep within an icy and windy and now very snowy, late snow, late in March or mid-March, radioactive wasteland. We're the survivors of the alt-right Keck apocalypse, once more wading into battle against the froggy lobster zombie hordes with Why Did Women Ever Leave the Kitchen? Rantzerker number 237. As always, I am your host. Well, actually, no, not as always. Well, today I am your host, and with me is Brian and Hannah. Yes, hello, everyone. And also Manifestelle, our very own favorite person to respond to. And you may have noticed I have well, you may not notice, but these are my welding goggles because I am deep into migraine, and that is even before we've started to respond to Manifestelle, so it's going to be a great day. All right, so before we begin, once again, as always and forevermore, if you want to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way to give us a tip and send us a message at the same time. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you would like to support the show, please go to feedthebadger.com/support and do that so that we can continue to bring you this very delectable content. I see Manifestelle is attempting a smile. An attempt was made. But you know, it definitely stops somewhere below her nose. But anyway,
there was this comedian that was very popular when we were younger, Brett Butler, who did a sketch talking about this lady she ran into that looked at her furrowed brow one day and said, "I see if I can do this. You know, you can get that snipped." And like she made this face, but it was. I always wonder when somebody makes an expression and there's no. Is she really smiling or is she faking it?
Obviously, she's faking it because it's not hitting her eyes.
Yeah,
and that's why it looks so creepy.
Well, or else she's really, really stoned. Because I have seen stoners smile like that when they think something's hilarious, and they just can't get their eyes to catch up.
Yeah, actually, you know, have you ever watched Never Ending Story? I mean, this is really petty. The racing, you were thinking the racing snail?
Yeah.
A little bit. Got a little bit of racing snail in there. Eyes not catching up with the mouth.
Yeah. But it is like so that's the theory. Either she doesn't mean it or she's very stoned.
So everybody can thank Richard Beer because he made the request for some more Manifestelle. But of course, you know, Manifestelle is sort of like getting the pulse of a lot of women. Again, she has 250,000 subscribers. It's if anything, some of the larger female dating strategy streamers are even worse. Like Shira. Oh my God. Oh, good Lord. So, yeah, we're back with Manifestelle, possibly because, you know, sometimes she has things that are interesting. I don't want to say that she says interesting things, but sometimes the things that come out of her mouth are really revealing. And so we're gonna take another look at her. All right. So, Brian, do we want to start with the first time code, or do you have anything you would like to do? Run away?
Be done with this. Good night, everybody. No, I mean I'll just play the introduction. So this video is called "Lazy Girl Jobs." I'm just a girl and quiet quitting. And let's get into the beginning. I think you know how this starts off, so you know.
Welcome to the Spoiled Girly Support Group podcast, where we talk about how to get that bag while also securing your own bag. I'm your host, Elle, and let's get into it.
I just
on
like
today's
to
episode, we
point something out. Every single person or every single woman who listens to her advice is never going to get anywhere near any bag but her own, I think. Well, but then again, there's a whole bunch of men out there who are, but even them, like the truly uber simp men, they themselves have now, I think, competition with women. So, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that I think even if you want to be a spoiled girly, Manifestelle really isn't showing you the golden path to doing that. But
I've run into enough FDS chicks. Some of them are bags.
oh,
I really don't think like it's almost like looking to a not a rock star, but something close to a rock star to tell you how to have a career in music. Like this has been someone who has had some good fortune. And like jokes aside about, she doesn't look like she's genuine at smiling and she's messed up her eyebrows, but she's got enough symmetry in her face to be considered highly attractive, right? And that probably doesn't describe most of the gals that I've actually have had the misfortune of seeing from FDS. They're usually much more middle-aged and bitter looking, honestly.
yeah, she does have the ability. She's got a good hand with makeup.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'd imagine, and that again, you're right. She's probably representing the top 1% of her own audience, which doesn't necessarily mean the top 1% of women. It's probably the bottom 1% of the top 20% of women. But anyway, let's push on. Let's get away from necessarily her success, her looks. Let's get into what she actually has to say.
You want to jump ahead then, or you want to hear the intro?
Oh, fine. We'll hear the intro.
She's only gotten okay. Let's listen to what she's proposing.
Talking about lazy girl jobs, pink collar jobs, the I'm just a girl trend, the good, the bad, and the nuance. Especially with the lazy girl job trend, I've been hearing it for a while now, and while I do see the appeal, there's certain things about it that we need to be careful with on a personal and societal level, and we're going to talk about those things today. Now we have a lot to cover, but before we get into it, I need you to hit the like, subscribe.
Okay, let me just jump ahead. She does. All right.
Yeah, the like, subscribe.
Yeah,
sorry,
but she
guys,
also has like a sponsor or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm skipping her sponsor.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going chat, yo, what's up? Okay, it looks like the internet's coming back. It looks like it dipped a little bit.
There he is.
Okay, there you are.
Hey guys.
Yeah,
we're all back again.
I did I drop? I mean, you both left the room, but I wasn't sure.
No, it was it was you who dropped.
We could see each other. Oh,
yeah, we could see each other. So I think you might have dropped, Brian. But regardless, technical difficulties of the Badgers. Let's keep going.
All
I'm
right,
not sure.
I'm just
Is
gonna
it because
continue.
we're just trying to do too much, or like
could be.
But anyway, let's keep going.
All right.
Social media trend.
The internet. And it looks like it's coming back on now. Okay. You guys are I'm back. I didn't do anything. Like it just sort of
It just dropped us from your it split the chat. That's weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. So we're back?
Really weird. Yeah, we're back. I mean, I'm running it and it's like I see that the frames are going fine, 10,000 kilobytes per second are streaming, and then it'll like drop to 0 suddenly, like when I'm watching the video. I don't know if it's because of that, and then it'll come back up. So I'm just gonna watch it and see if it happens again. So last thing she was saying is that lazy girl jobs, another way of describing them is essentially work-life balance. And she's explaining that lazy girl jobs they basically pay well but don't ask a lot of women. And that's really what it is. That's really what it is.
Okay, let's keep going then.
It's like a day in the life at Google or whatever. It's like those jobs, right? So, all right, let's play some more.
Volume of output and a positive work environment and culture that promotes slow living and prioritize employee well-being. And some examples of these jobs are virtual assistants, social media managers, freelance writers, online tutors, and graphic designers. And
I
given
have some
all of
bad
that, it is
news
no
for Manifestelle. It's got some really bad news. A lot of those jobs are probably not going to exist in 5 years. And also, what the hell
Possibly
is she
even
talking?
one.
Yeah, what the hell is she talking about? Graphic designer being an easy job? What kind of graphic designers are you talking about? Graphic design is an incredibly high pressure job. Unless you're actually talking about you took a college course in design principles, you did one like semester, and now you call yourself a graphic designer, because graphic design is not a design, a job where it's good work life balance. Like
Yeah.
most of the professional arts, I don't know where she's getting her information, but most of the professional arts, like architects, graphic designers, interior, that's hard work. And it's now being pressed by AI in a lot of cases. So what the heck is she on? Honestly, I don't think that these so-called spoilt girly jobs, which first of all, what makes her think that she's, or any of the women watching this are entitled to jobs like that? Those are jobs where you're basically exploiting your employer. Or alternatively, your employer has a whole bunch of BlackRock DEI money and can just
Mm-hmm.
throw it around like water. Well, do you
Yeah.
really think that that's going to continue to exist as AI takes over and as the cultural climate changes against wasting money like this? Like, seriously. Anyway, but I think she's flawed in her reasoning. But let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, she presumes that the market for these jobs are just something that will always exist, and so
Yeah.
this, and it's also something that, like, I guess every woman should have, like there should just be a position open for all women. I don't know.
Hmm. I know. I'm
Mhm.
just in my head. I'm going back through the list of jobs that I've done because I have that habit. I'm not really into the whole lazy girl job thing. I do usually 2 jobs, often 3, and I've been a newspaper photographer. I've done layout and design in the back of the newspaper. I've even done paper stuffing in the basement of the newspaper where you put the ads in. I've done a little bit of writing professionally, not very much. But in addition to all of that, and retail, and being a nurse's aide, and working in a bakery, and working for a short time at Radio Shack, a few other places, I was a security guard. That's probably the closest thing to a lazy job that I've ever had, because you have large segments of downtime in that job, and you're really not doing anything but occupying space. And it's not always like that. Like, there's some times where you're on guard the whole time. And then there's other assignments you can get where you're basically just sitting in a guard shack waiting for people to come by that you have to verify or tell to go away. And you don't even have to make them leave. You call the police. So she doesn't know what a lazy job is. And it might be that she's never had a real job. If she, I kind of get the impression, like, because if you have any other job, your employer expects you to produce results. And usually, if there's a product or a service being done, your employer expects that to be consistently done, worked on throughout your entire shift or throughout your entire workday, however that goes. And a lot of times, there's overtime. So this idea of lazy girl jobs, you don't hear very much about lazy guy jobs, right?
No.
Well,
Because
that's not allowed.
when men go
That's
to work, they're expected to work, and if they don't work, they get fired, right? When women go to work, they want to sit at a desk and paint their fingernails, like the stereotype, the personal assistant secretary sitting out in front of her boss's office that won't answer the phone. And that's part of the reason that women get paid less, because women look for things like lazy girl jobs, or they try to turn jobs into lazy girl jobs that aren't.
Mm. Well, I was going to say something. I think also there's something inherently different in the way men and women work. And this is something we discovered during COOF. Of course, they framed it in terms of women being oppressed, but it was interesting what it revealed. Men focus, very, very like pinpoint focus on their job. So even when they're at home, they start their job at 9, they focus on their job until they clock out at 5, and they are doing their job. And what they found is that women, by way of contrast, when they do the job, they're actually so-called multitasking, which is basically taking the time that they're being paid and doing their own chores. Now, the way that they framed it was that women do this because they know they have to do it after work anyway, but still, that's not actually an excuse, right? You should be, when you're on the clock, working and doing your work. So that's what they found. And so I think there's an inherent difference between men and women. Women do not focus as absolutely on the job as men do, whereas men very much focus on the job that they're doing. And so I think there's also an inherent difference. Men actually may be drawn to jobs that require more intensive focus and wouldn't be considered a lazy job.
Yeah. You also find that they're more likely to look for jobs that, based on how much the job pays, because they're having to support themselves and possibly a family, whereas women don't even always have to support themselves, much less a family. So there's more tolerance for it, and there's more of the behavior among females, and then they have a different attitude toward what constitutes work too. And there's a study. One of my ex connections posts this on a regular basis that showed that when it comes to housework, men and women will report the same task that takes the same amount of time differently. If it is, say, laundry, where you put the laundry in the washer, you set the machine doing the task, and then you walk away from the machine. And an hour later, it's done, and you come back and you get the laundry out, you transfer it to the dryer. Women will count that as an hour doing laundry. Men will count that as however long it took to get the machine started. And while that's going on, they'll go do their dishes, or they'll do, like if there's laundry to be folded, or they'll do vacuuming or other tasks. And women don't necessarily. They'll sit there and watch TV, play on their phone, do their hobby, read a book. And as each task gets completed, then they go on to the next task. And so they'll count something, like I did 8 hours worth of work. And men might count that as an hour to 2 hours worth of work. And so when we see those surveys where women say they do more housework than men, they're talking about the same housework. They're just counting all of their downtime as housework.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really and instead of actually trying to teach women to overcome issues like this, issues of how men and women view work differently, and also issues of women's greater tendency towards focusing on unfairness, quote unquote. Instead of actually addressing that, we just indulge it to our own detriment. But yeah, so she probably has no idea what real work is. And I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who has only really found success as an entrepreneur. Just because I guess I'm just so weird. But I was actually thinking about this a while back, and I realized when I was watching myself that I honestly have to say, okay, I'm going to take this as an hour off, because otherwise I am doing something, trying to research something, or doing something on Twitter, responding to people, which I've now turned into content, or I am working on a podcast, or working on my writing. So it's like my day, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, I'm always doing a task. And it's because once I stop, I feel like I am a failure, which is probably not the best way to approach life. But so anyway, like on the one hand, I'm an entrepreneur. I sort of set my own hours, but it's almost become like, well, setting your own hours is what you get to decide to do first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People
And-
think when you're in charge, you get away with a lot of stuff, but really it means you work harder.
Well, if you're doing it right, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so let us do a bit more there, Brian.
All right.
That lazy girl jobs are quickly gaining popularity and acceptance in the modern day work landscape. In fact, the hashtag lazy girl job has over 18 million hits on TikTok alone. Although the term lazy girl job is new, these types of low effort jobs have existed way before the internet decided to put a label on it. Lynn Atier, founder and CEO of recruiting firm Bimana, shares, as a recruiter,
All right. I think I'm gonna jump ahead. So, because she's just explaining what they are, but I want to jump to lazy girl jobs as a path to financial independence at about 20 minutes. What?
Okay, but before we do that, I just want to put something out there because I've been sort of, I have a whole bunch of Medium articles and things that I follow, and one of the things that I followed is a job recruiter, and he has been describing the landscape, and I don't think that honestly, I think that employers at this point, if this woman who is some kind of consultant for the lazy job, if employers actually know that she's representing you, I'd imagine they'd avoid you at this point, because the work landscape now is getting harder and harder for job seekers, and it's to the point where apparently it's making even the people who are interviewing job seekers stressed out, because like the whole dating landscape is now almost like the job seeking landscape is almost a reflection of the dating landscape now. It's just as difficult.
Well, you have a couple of weird things going on that are contributing to that. There's a significant difference. Like, I would even call it a distance in work ethic between baby boomers and Gen X, and then between Gen X and millennials, and then again between millennials and Zoomers. And you have people from each generation that are abnormal. So they either have a far better work ethic or a far worse work ethic. So they may be like as if they were in the generation before theirs or the generation after theirs. But it's pretty consistent that each generation, when they start a job, they are not doing the work that the generation before them did. And they don't necessarily understand how. And it's as simple as when we've talked about it on HBR Talk, I give the example of the girl that I worked with that didn't know how to use the mop and the mop bucket. And she thought that not knowing how to do things would get her out of tasks. So she really leaned into not knowing how to do it. And when people tried to explain it to her, she really leaned into not getting it, to the degree that I got frustrated and told her she just wasn't moving the rolling bucket fast enough, so that she yanked it back and splashed her pants with it. Because I got really annoyed. But I mean, she did it to the degree that she took a sink drain plug and a sink stopper and put it plug up and basket down and said, "Why isn't the water staying in the sink?" You see that a lot with this intergenerational difference, and it's varies in how bad it is, but it's a big it causes quite a bit, I should say, of frustration between coworkers and between managers and coworkers. And then as that's going on, you also have this DEI thing happening, where if an individual is being dumped on, like a coworker is dumping their work on another coworker, and everybody knows it's happening, the complaint cannot be made, the manager cannot do the criticism, the coworker cannot be guided to do their job if they're female, if they're minority, if there's some combination thereof, if they got a special religion, if they make a big deal about being LGBTQ, if they make a big deal about being atheist, any of that. It's like, oh, you're only picking on me because demographic, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I've done no tasks for the last 2 weeks and my coworker is complaining about it. And it's being upheld by human resources. So managers are getting disciplined for telling people to do their jobs, and colleagues are getting disciplined for expecting to not have to do their coworkers' jobs. And that dynamic between generations and between demographics and everything, it's making it to the point where managers are starting to look at people when they're trying to hire as, is this going to be somebody that I can mentor, or am I going to get in trouble for mentoring this person? Does this person seem to be coming in with already some knowledge of the job? How much training do they need? Or am I going to be able to coast and this person's going to come in and do the work? And I've seen that for the last 15 years in the various places that I've worked. And it hasn't just been like the low rung retail and stuff like this. I've seen that as a college professor. I've seen that in journalism. I've seen that in retail. I've seen it in healthcare. It's everywhere. So yeah, the whole lazy thing isn't helping.
No, it's actually going to be very destructive. And the longer that people have this as pursue this as an option, the worse everything gets economically. Because we need, like, honestly, the wealth, people's wealth is not based on how much money they have, but how productive their neighbor is. You know, if you think about it. All right, so let's watch a little bit more.
All right, here we go.
Women will be able to do that as well. But for right now, we have lazy girl jobs. And another point in the pro lazy girl jobs bucket is women's increased autonomy and expression of their desires.
Oh, good grief.
When you escape the toxic hustle culture and take on these lazy girl jobs, you're essentially advocating for yourself. And with the rise of remote work, which is such a blessing to a lot of women, it allows women to be even more flexible with how they work and when they work. So with lazy girl jobs,
so more flexible about how and when they work. Oh, good. So in other words, in aggregate, these women's choices are gonna basically make the American economy and every other Western country that enables this less competitive compared to other cultures with a serious work ethic virtue.
It's going to depend on how it's handled. Like, if it's about, this person works 9 to 5, this person works 8 to 4, and this person works 10 to 6. That's one thing. It's not gonna be a big deal in jobs where you're not doing in the moment customer interactions, but you're just producing content or background for content or items that don't actually get used or dealt with for a day or two. But if you're doing, I at least know one person who does call center work from their home. You have to be on when people are calling. You can't decide you only want to work certain hours, and that, so she hasn't been able to do what this woman is describing. And if she puts that expectation into every gal out there, oh, if I work from home and I don't want to get up until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I can work from 4 p.m. until, whenever. And maybe you can't. And it's going to sabotage a lot of women trying to work from home, actually.
Yeah. Well, but, well, the thing is that it's actually proven that women, at least women, not necessarily men, but women, when they work from home, are less productive because they do this.
They don't always work.
Yeah, they don't always work. They're often just doing things that around the home or other stuff. And I would say that it's looking like women just don't have the same kind of virtues around work as men do. Like, and it's not all women. There's some women who are very hardworking. I always have to do that caveat, but there seems to be a larger percentage, enough that it's picked up statistically, that will sit on their employer's time and see themselves that it's okay that they're just receiving resources, and that in itself is somehow a virtue, that their employer is just shoveling resources at them without them actually doing anything to earn them. And I see that mentality a lot more among women, but it's also cropping up around I guess younger men too. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that I've actually heard that there are some, because of Me Too, there are some male employers that have at home their entire female workforce just to keep them away from the male workforce. And that might be an option too. I mean, if your company is strong enough and has enough revenue to just maintain the fatberg of women doing almost nothing at home, then do it. Gets them away from men, so men can actually generate that culture that men do around actual work. And you may actually be more efficient. It might be a short-term solution to a lot of these issues, these workplace issues. A culture of gossip and not getting shit done, taking over. Just
well, and
offsite
assuming a culture of assuming bad intent and acting in bad faith, because that is something that happens a lot in the workplace with women when they start Me Tooing people. If a guy is facing in their general direction, he's looking at them, even if he's not, right? If somebody is laughing, they're laughing at these women, and even if they're not. If they hear half of a conversation, it must have started out with, did you know so-and-so? And it's them that's being talked about. And, I've worked with that too. I've worked with that chick. And it's hell working with that chick, because you're on eggshells the whole time, and everybody else is also on eggshells, and you snipe at each other, and people will throw each other under the bus, and it ends up being a very bad environment. Employers are also starting to not do things like, if you have to counsel a female employee and you're a male employer, you can't just sit her down and talk to her. You have to have another person present in the room. If you want to have even an instructional training, you have to have another person there, because if you're alone with her, she could say anything. And if she doesn't like what she's being told, even if it has absolutely nothing harassing or sexual about it, just, well, this task isn't optional, you have to do this task when you're on your shift. That alone can get a guy Me Too'd. So they're not working with women alone, and they're not mentoring like they used to. They're not giving the instructions as completely, and they're not taking the time with women because they don't want to put themselves at risk.
Well, and why would
I can't
they?
blame them.
No, nobody can blame them at this point.
Yeah.
But we're just seeing in real time as this, and it's funny because women have been in the workplace for a fairly long time now, and yet we are now seeing like the reason why women were often excluded from this stuff. All of the bad habits just being indulged.
When we say women have been in the workplace for a very long time, we're talking about middle-class women, like women who historically haven't necessarily had to be in the workplace. Upper-class women too. And to be honest, poor women have always had to be in the workplace. And it's usually their workplace has usually included things like having to go to other women's houses and do their housework for them, because those women won't do it, and their husbands have to pay somebody else, or doing their childcare or their cooking, any of that. And there are women that worked in factories. I had 2 great aunts that worked in textile mills, that the same textile mills that had a reputation for tearing up children. But that kind of work, if you didn't have a lot of money, you did that kind of work. And even going back to like the pre-Victoria times, like women worked in coal mines, and they did work that you needed to be smaller for. And there was work that boys did, there was work that girls did, and there was work that women did. And during Victorian times, in fact, because of Queen Victoria's distaste for the idea that women were doing this work, they pulled the women out of the mines, and then they had to work outdoors instead, where it was freezing cold in the wintertime and, really, really oppressively hot and humid in the summertime. And they pretty much had the same outfit on the whole time because it had to be something thick and padded that covered their skin so they didn't get injured by the stuff they were working with. And boys got put into the jobs that women had been doing. But women always worked, and there were always women that did shit jobs. It's just that women like Manifestelle wouldn't really know about those women and what they did because they would be beneath her.
I doubt Manifestelle is actually that high up on the social hierarchy, at least before she got pretty.
But she is on the attitude hierarchy.
True. Okay, so let's do a little bit more.
All right.
Rise of remote work, like this greater flexibility in terms of work, this has led to greater work-life balance for a lot of women. And we saw that in the comment section of that TikTok. Like, women are loving this greater flexibility, and they now have the freedom to pursue personal endeavors and projects, side hustles, passion projects, just like
what are you
they were not able.
A side hustle is a second job. If you're pursuing a side hustle, either you have a special passion for it, like I have for this, right? Or you're desperate for money because you're not making enough at your lazy girl job.
Yeah, but also what she's saying is women are only employed in name and paycheck only.
Yeah.
So when women get a job, what they want is a job that just gives them money so they can do something else. Are recruiters looking at this and watching this and realizing that this philosophy is actually a philosophy of theft?
Yeah. It's so rampant that there are women who will cost their employers money doing things using their employer's resources on the job. That, for instance, I take care of intellectually disabled adults. I had a colleague that engaged in a practice that we later figured out after she was fired for wasting a lot of fuel and a lot of driving hours that were budgeted. We think she was actually doing DoorDash on the job with the client in the car. And like that kind of thing, that kind of behavior is it's not just entitled. It's actually kind of sociopathic, where you don't consider the damage that you're doing to your employer. And you don't consider the impact on your job environment and the success of the business that you work for and the sustainability of the business that you work for. You just think, oh, I can get paid for doing job A while I'm doing job B and getting paid for doing job B and just make money at both. So I get double the money for half the work.
Let someone else fit the bill and do the work that you're not doing. Yeah, but it's and this mentality comes from this attitude, which again seems to be very prevalent among women, not so much among men, at least it wasn't, that your needs entitle you to resources rather than you must earn those resources, and having that kind of a virtue of if I don't work, I don't eat kind of virtue.
Yeah.
Right. If I don't make an effort, if I don't try, if I don't do something productive that someone is interested in paying me for, because for whatever reason, usually when you get paid, it's because you're doing work somebody doesn't want to do for some reason. Like, for example, we here put our names and faces to stuff that gets you socially kicked out. Right. Like we there's a huge social cost to talking about this stuff. So people pay us to do it. And that's a transaction. We get paid to do something other people don't want to do. It's like getting paid to shovel shit, except in our case, it's mental shit.
We're shoveling the proverbial bullshit.
Yeah, we're shoveling bullshit. We're professional bullshit shovelers, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. And you have this mentality that you want to do something of service to somebody else, and that is what earns you your income. But women often have a mentality that just having a need is virtue is enough to be worthy of getting something. It's like anti-meritocratic.
I think it's cultural, and I think it's something that evolved in Western culture throughout history. Women's the culture of being female. I don't think it's genetic. I don't think it's biological, but the culture of being female evolved with the idea that women's way of obtaining resources was to need them visibly and out loud, and men would provide them, and women would distribute them. And men's way of obtaining resources was to go get them, do the work, and bring them back. And they always better bring enough for the whole class. And I think that has led to this idea that women feel like they deserve resources just for existing, and men think they owe resources just for existing. And it feeds on each other. It's a codependent relationship. And if women don't, like, I think it's a much worse thing today than it was in the past. And that, in the past, women at least had some sense of responsibility for stewarding resources and producing some resources. Well, they're going out hunting. We're going to gather. Maybe some of us are strong enough to hunt. Maybe some of them aren't, and they should help us gather. We're going to cook. We're going to make the resources safe to consume. We're going to process it, and things like that. And I think a lot of that has disappeared because a lot of what women did to do, their fair share in making sure the resources were available to everybody and usable by everybody, that stuff got replaced by machines first. And then long before men's labor was getting all replaced by machines or simplified by machines or made safer by machines. And as a result of that, I think women became more entitled over time. And we've gotten to a point now where women don't even remember having a sense of responsibility for their family and making sure that the resources are used fairly and wisely. And so now it's just, I want, gimme, gimme, gimme. Put the money in the hat. I'm going to call misogyny.
Yeah. Okay, let's get another.
I got a super chow.
Super
I'm
chow.
gonna read
Cool.
the super chow. Yeah. Gary gave us $5 and says, "I've experienced women in the workplace. I work in the service industry and we've been short-staffed for weeks now. I'm doing the job of 3 people while they gossip and drink lemonade in the back room. Meanwhile, I'm either mopping the floor, cleaning the bathroom, or taking out the trash."
I'll bet the women never clean the bathroom. My coworkers, when I worked at the gas station down the street from where I live now, all the women would come up with every excuse in the world to get out of cleaning the bathroom. I was the only one that would just do it, and when I was asked to do it instead of complaining. And there was one night where I was working, and I've told this on HBR Talk before, but there was one night when I was working that somebody had gone in and been sick in the men's room. It was a Friday, and the assistant manager was not going to be in for the entire rest of the weekend. They just had a shift manager, and she wasn't going to go do it, and the cashiers weren't going to go do it, and they put a no service sign, out of order sign on the door, and I was like, "What's wrong with the men's restroom?" "Well, there's puke in it." "Well, we can clean that up. It's not out of service." "Well, I'm not doing it." "No, I'm not doing it. Just let Chris do it when he comes back in. He's he's the manager. He's a guy. You need a guy to go in there and clean the men's room." So I ended up going in there and cleaning it, and then coming back out and putting my apron on and preparing lunch for people the rest of the morning, and that was how that ended up working. And it was on a regular basis that the women that I worked with would not touch the bathrooms. "Oh, it's too gross. I'm not going in there." But they would let the person who prepared people's food go in there. And then they would get mad that I took so long washing my hands up to the elbows, and I had to wear a different apron when I went in there than the one that I was using in the kitchen. I'm like, well, you want to eat what I'm going to cook? But that's the way they were, Oh, let a guy do it. Let a guy do it. And they got mad at me for not being on board with that. And then they got mad at me for being careful about what I was doing. And it just, the work ethic was terrible. And that was, some of them were Gen Xers like me. So I didn't understand. But I had gone from a mostly rural area to a mostly urban area. And I quickly learned that that's another factor. If you're in a small town, a farming community where like kids had chores when they were growing up and they had to be careful and there wasn't this leeway for everything being done for you, they have a better work ethic than if you're in an area where you had to take care of, and it's the upper class urban areas, like above the poverty level, where young people don't really learn task completion. Once you get below a certain income, you get moms that didn't take care of their kids, and the kids started having to take care of themselves at like the ripe old age of 4 years old. They know how to work. Unfortunately, not for good reasons. But yeah, what he's describing was my common experience in retail.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It is a bit different between rural and urban women. But because I when we go we have to drive, like recently we just, well, not recently because everything is covered in snow, but we have to drive everywhere. If we want to go to a vet, we have to drive like 80 miles, right? But when we're driving, you go past farmsteads and you'll see women doing yard work. In rural areas. Like yard work is actually women's work in rural areas. So
and it's real yard work. It's not just
oh yeah, because it's like you got like 2 acres of yard that you have to. Though they usually have like maybe a driving tractor, but there's also weed whacking,
power mower,
and gardening that needs to happen. But yeah, so in rural areas, I've seen a lot more of a strong work ethic among women, and particularly interestingly enough, I've watched the progression of like a rural transplant into the Google jobs kind of sphere. And although she's adopted a lot of the mentality of the avocado toast crowd, she still, I think, is a harder worker than them, just inherently. And so it is definitely regional. It's definitely generational, but most of all, it's sex.
Yeah. There's always a big difference between men and women.
Men are much more likely to take a sense of self-worth from the work that they do, which means they work harder. All right, let's keep going, because I wanted to try to pace this.
Yeah. So I jumped ahead to let me see, 37. Empowerment beyond traditional workspaces. So, but essentially, what
empowerment is one of those words I hate, by the way. But
yeah,
yes,
I know it's the worst. Okay,
so overused.
We know that we're not going to find joy and empowerment and validation in these male-dominated workspaces. Like, we don't need to be breaking glass ceilings if we personally know that we're not going to be happy there. Like, it's not.
Then
for
don't
us. Like,
complain.
don't
Like, this is the problem. Fine. Accept that about yourselves and do not complain about the number of female CEOs.
Yeah.
Don't complain about the number of women in the C-suite.
You know why there are more male CEOs than female CEOs? Because men talk about what they're going to do for their workplace, and women talk about what their workplace is going to do for them.
Yeah. Well, there's also the other thing is that proportionate. There are more female CEOs proportionate to women in the worst jobs, like garbage collecting, than men. So actually, if you look at the number of female CEOs proportionate to how much women choose to go into the workplace, there's actual pressure pushing women up to the CEO position, whereas there's pressure pushing women down to the worst jobs.
Yeah.
So this whole idea that the fact that there are fewer female CEOs represents bias against women, absolutely false. because based on women's labor force participation, they're actually preferentially chosen for CEO positions. So if women go into the labor force, they will more likely end up as a CEO than a garbage collector relative to a man. Where is that? How is that disadvantage? Just because you choose to end up in a spoilt girly job, like you prefer that versus doing the high powered risk taking activities that'll get you in a CEO position. I mean, if a woman does engage in those activities, she's probably got like maybe a 10 times greater chance of ending up in a CEO position than a man. But they just don't want to, because they want to be in these kind of spoilt jobs. Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
You have this thing between men and women. It's not just them wanting to be in the spoiled jobs. That is a big thing. And it's not just them picking the easy professions that they think, oh, I can rise up here and I'm fulfilled here and everything. It's this whole combination of, like I said, women ask what their employer can do for them versus men offering, what am I going to do for my employer? This is how I'm going to earn my paycheck. And then you also have this complete lack of sense of what the employer is hiring them for, right? What the employer owes them for, and what the employer has a right to expect out of them. Like, men go into work understanding your employer has a goal for the creation of this job. This job exists to achieve a particular thing. And therefore, whoever takes this job, that their mission should be to achieve that particular thing. And it shouldn't necessarily come as any surprise that involves specific tasks and specific actions and behaviors and so on. And what you end up with women is, well, all right, how am I going to work this around my life? And how am I going to make this fit into my sensibilities, fit in among my sensibilities? And how I'm going to keep this from interfering with my family time. And oh, by the way, I deserve to get paid more because I do laundry at home. That's my laundry for myself. And when they go into work with that attitude, the first thing they're not doing is negotiating with their employer for more money. I should get paid more because I provide you this value is a lot more persuasive. I earned $50,000 more than the next salesman this year, is a lot more persuasive than I do my own laundry. Like, everybody does their own goddamn laundry. I'm not paying you for that. That's your shit.
Yeah, but if a woman shows the least amount of that kind of more, I suppose, masculine, task-orientated, risk-taking, she has all these kinds of pressures that just zoom her up into the C-suite. Just
then
boom,
you get the female CEOs.
Yeah, the
whether
female
they're
CEOs.
ready for it or not. Yep. Whereas men have to compete with that, and they have to actually be better than that in order to move up.
And the other, like, and you see that with the end result with that, with like Theranos. You remember that? That was that entire thing, that entire scam worked entirely because it was a young woman, supposed tech genius. And and everybody just was salivating over themselves to give her money because of that. That's the only reason the scam worked. And now she's going and saying, "Oh, it's all my boyfriend's fault."
Yeah. I had to explain this to somebody on X not too long ago, where I said, I know it was on, actually I think it was last night on the show. I talked about the accountability gap, which the accountability gap is a phenomenon that has been discussed in the men's rights movement for like at least 100 years. If I was going to say who originated this, I'd probably go back to Ernest Belfort Bax and his writings, because you can find it described in his writings. He did not name it. And nobody really had given it a specific buzzword jargon name. And at the point where I started calling it the accountability gap. And there are people that have talked to me that think of it as my idea because I named it. When I only named it because of the wage gap myth. And the wage gap myth evolving into this point where women are expecting employers to pay them more money because they do housework at home for themselves. But that doesn't make it my original idea, right? It's just I put a title to it and have been describing it. And I've had this experience of being treated like a genius for saying ordinary things that are true that male men's rights activists have said for years because people aren't used to hearing a woman say it. And I think that happens with women in the workplace where men will do a job and they'll perform the tasks and they'll advance the procedures so that they're improved and so on. For years and years, the workplace will become safer than it originally was. It'll become more efficient than it originally was over time. Women will come in, do the same job, and they get treated like they're brilliant for doing ordinary things in the workplace because people haven't seen women do them as frequently. And they'll toot their own horn. And look what I did. I did my normal job duties. Everybody, aren't you impressed? And people will make the mistake of being impressed. And it's not impressive. Calling a thing what it is not impressive. Even if nobody else figured out a good name for it, it's not impressive. It's a tool that we can use and move on. And it's the same thing with women in the workplace, that maybe they notice that something is a little messy and they tidy it up. Men have been doing that for a long time. You're not being treated in a sexist way because you cleaned the workplace kitchen, and so you get that kind of it creates expectations of special treatment in women, and it creates a culture of special treatment of women in the workplace, and you end up with less quality with their work and more responsibility being attributed to them than they are actually fulfilling.
All right, let's finish this off there, Brian.
All right, I got another super chat from Gary Thomas for $5 who says, when it comes to cleaning the bathroom, I have no problem with any kind of bodily exertions. I think you mean excretions. But chewing gum in urinals makes my skin crawl.
I hate chewing gum. It's been in somebody's mouth. Like, I know it's I'll clean up vomit and I can handle it, but you're right. Chewing gum is gross.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's sticky. All right, let's do this.
All right.
And I think that's the nuance that we are now realizing after the 2010s girl boss era, is that empowerment will not be found in male spaces. See, like, we don't need to be exactly like them
because
to be
empowerment
equal.
is
equal,
fake.
period.
Can I just say one thing about this? Isn't it crazy that, it's not that crazy, that Manifestelle and women who agree with her, which is probably a lot of women, let's be honest, they literally are blind to the idea, or to the fact, actually, that men don't get to do any of this. We don't get to have the conversation about lazy jobs or work-life balance. It's just like Warren Farrell said. What are the three options for a woman who wants to enter the workforce after getting married and starting a family? She can stay at home and raise kids. She can work full time, but then she can't see the kids, or she can do some kind of balance between working and spending time with children. And men also have three options: work full time, and work full time. Men cannot. They do not have the luxury. And I don't even think that men complain about that. I think that men doing a full-time job to support a family, or just to support themselves, or to support a wife or whatever, generally they don't mind doing that at all. They don't see it as a problem, because they don't really make working about themselves. They see it as, well, I'm doing this, especially if they work, maybe their business is something they care about. They're more invested in the success of that. But it's just I don't know. It's just wild. Only women that are as comfortable and as safe and and living in such as an abundant a society that they have now, only women like that can actually complain. And it's like the joke I said patron show of Adam and Eve, where Adam is walking in the Garden of Eden with Eve, and he's like, "Look at this. This is paradise. We have food, that's always delicious. We live forever. We'll never be sick. All the animals are our friends. Like everything is perfect, and our God is like our neighbor and our father. We have him like whenever we want to hang out with him." And he's like, "Don't you think this is wonderful?" And Eve says, "Yeah, it's just not enough, is it?" It's like no matter how good they have it, there's like something to complain about. I'm just, but anyway, like we can move on to the other video because I know that we've done this for a little over an hour already. But basically, what she says is because women have been in trying to like, do jobs in a male created environment, the patriarchy, that's where you get like things like jobs and money and stuff. They have to like somehow escape that into a scenario where it allows for more work-life balance, which just means doing like useless jobs that are going to be extinct because of AI and companies waking up to the fact that like 80% of the people aren't doing any work. that work for them.
A lot of the times it takes one person to do these 5 people's jobs if that one person has a good work ethic. The other thing I wanted to mention about her talking about this stuff is I'll tell you why I hate the word empowerment. All right. When women got a hold of the word empowerment, it went from describing the use of tools for improving an individual's capability and productivity so that they could provide value in exchange for compensation and credit, basically, social credit, to making people feel good about themselves. Just making people feel good about themselves, just governing their feelings. And so there's not really any real empowerment in that. It's a sense of feeling powerful instead of a sense of being able to do things. And it gets thrown around like it's something important and valuable and useful and helps people, when in fact what it usually does is provide the office bully more weapons to use against her colleagues and any management that expects her to do her job.
I think
so. That's why I hate that term.
What I'd like to point out is that women had a job throughout human history, right? It was in the home. It was often a lot of work, at least up to the Industrial Revolution. Men made it so that 90% of it was automated, leaving women with something like 10, well, actually, basically 21 hours free a day, of which they could do anything they wanted. And incidentally, the amount of childcare that women do has increased since the 50s. So probably because of the loss of extended family to help out. So in the 50s, a woman was doing less childcare, less work. She had her entire day was under her control and her decision how she wanted to spend that time. She was financially reliant on a husband, but there were protections that ensured that he was taking care of her financially, right? So he had to work to make sure that she was maintained financially.
Yeah.
And women decided that wasn't good enough. At that time, a majority of women could have lived the spoiled girly lifestyle, even better than the spoiled girly lifestyle. Never had to step foot outside your home, right? Your entire life was purchasing goods for the home, maybe cooking a meal, but the process of cooking meals was vastly decreased in effort due to cans and preserved goods and premixes. And in fact, the consumer revolution in the 50s brought in things in the home that would only have ever been seen on rich people's plates in the past. And women looked at that and said, "Oh, this just isn't enough." And I think it's simply because, in part, well, maybe it is fully, because you had to trust that your husband had your best interests in mind. And that's it. All you had to do was trust. And you threw all of that out. And that would have been the life of the majority of women in the 50s. The majority of women would have had access to what you term, not even a spoiled girly job, because that job, quote unquote, in the home didn't even require the amount of work that a spoiled girly job would require. And that was not good enough. And for the last 70 freaking years, men have never heard the end of it. Like literally women were in the home 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, doing hard labor to keep the home running. And men were like, well, why don't I just buy a whole bunch of automated stuff so that your job is easier? 60 years later, men have never heard the end of it.
Yep, women are still bitching about
the
it.
contempt and the anger and the hatred that women have ladled on them for reducing the labor in the home that much. It's infuriating.
If you don't believe it, look up a video called Semiotics of the Kitchen. This was a feminist protest video that was made to make it look like women were enslaved by inanimate objects that they used as tools. And it's just, it was really something.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it just really was. Like you look at it and you're like, oh God, what is going on in this woman's head? Because you get the distinct impression that she's oppressed by the potato masher. I'm just like oh
that's
God.
the thing. Like, in the future, let's just imagine a perfect femtopia and everything is done. And there are no men. Everything is done by robots. Women will still be oppressed by the fact that robots do everything for them.
Yeah. The robots will be their imprisoners and oppressors.
Women were still viewed as chattel.
Even though they could turn them on and off and program them, they'll still be their oppressors.
Yep.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, let's get to the next one. I know you want to do that, Brian.
Yeah, let's just get to the other video. So this one is conveniently related title. Influencing is a real job, but no one thinks so. Guys, what I'm doing is legitimate, and I'm going to prove it. And also quiet quitting.
I mean, she's right. It is. She has to pay. Presumably, she pays her income tax. So that, as far as I'm concerned, you pay income tax. You probably have a real job. But let's face it. Like it's pure con artistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play the video.
Yeah, okay.
Order. That's iloveishop.com and use code Manifestelle to get 10% off your first order. Now back to the topic. Last January 19th, 2025, TikTok users in the US received this alert on the app. It says, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok right now. And the reason behind this ban is that lawmakers and US officials suspect that TikTok's ties to China pose a risk on our national security. And that risk comes in the form of China having however many millions of Americans' information. And another TikTok creator was like,
well, what if I want them to have my information? Have you thought about that?
Like, that's hilarious. And this all didn't just happen.
I can't fucking believe it. Manifestelle was having a Manifestelle moment. Like about another woman.
Well, you think about, I don't know if women understand the security risk of a semi-hostile or totally hostile nation having, say, not just your name and your address and your phone number, but your passwords for everything on your phone. We've been getting warned about this online. We've been getting warned about this on YouTube. We've been getting warned about this on Facebook. There are memes about it. There's everything that it's not just your name, your address, your phone. It's your banking information. It's your password and your name to your bank account. And it's like you have games on your phone. Those games have mined all of the information that you have put into your phone. So if you've done your banking on your phone, the companies that created those games have gotten the password to your bank accounts, and if you use your name with no numbers behind it or anything, or if you use your name with numbers behind it as your name to get into your bank account online, they have that. If you put your social security number in somewhere, they have that, if you're an American, or your other tax identifying information in other nations, they have that. And having all of that information means that they can financially cripple your country by taking down everybody's ability to spend their money all at the same time. So nobody can go to the store today. Nobody can shop online today. Nobody can use public transportation today. That card you use to get on the bus doesn't work right now. Or that phone app you use to get on the bus doesn't work right now. Right? And that's if you have the kind of vehicle I have, or you get on a bus to drive every day. If you have a newer vehicle, something that was made in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's computerized, and you have what's it called, OnStar or whatever, that you get roadside assistance through it, and it gives you the same services that, say, Google Maps gives the people in the cheap seats. Your car might be hackable, and you might be able to be disabled on your route to or from work. If your workplace relies on being able to make financial transactions on a daily basis, that may be compromised. They may not be able to do it, right? You can cripple an entire country if you have all of that information. So it's not a minor thing at all. What people don't understand is the threat that we were told that Temu is. Everything on your phone is that threat. Everything that originates from outside the United States that is on your phone. Google doesn't vet the apps that they allow you to download through their shop. Like, they might keep conservatives from putting their apps up, but they don't stop. In fact, I just had an app self-download from an ad that I watched on YouTube. And that app then got some of my information and started using it. And it had just so happened that I had some fail-safes set up that I got an alert, and I had to get in touch with my bank and say, if there's anything that happens with this app, I didn't make any deals with them. I'm not doing business with them. Don't accept any charges. And then go change all of my information because of that. So it's a very, very big deal that women don't understand with what can happen with these information harvesting apps. And like I said, TikTok isn't the problem. TikTok is like the little face on the front of the forehead of the giant heaping monster that nobody's looking at because they see that nice little no mask. That's really a very serious situation that has not been addressed by pretty much most Western nations. It's a vulnerability that we should be scared as hell about. And people getting pissed off that TikTok got shut down are not seeing the bigger picture. And people feeling successful because TikTok got shut down for a little while, they're not seeing the bigger picture either.
So I don't think she's critical of TikTok. I think that let's listen, because the thing is, TikTok being blocked, and it was only for a short time. Obviously, it's back up.
Yeah, yeah.
TikTok being blocked was she's making the case for TikTok. So you know what I mean? Because she's making the case for being an influencer, and she gets all of her material comes from trends on TikTok. So she's obviously pro TikTok, probably pro China, just saying. But anyway, there's a lot of Chinese propaganda on the internet. And some of it is covert, some of it is overt, but
some of it is hilarious.
Yeah.
on January 19th, the stage has been set since last year, or even before that. Last year, Congress moved to force TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to sell its stake in the app or be cut off from the US market, giving the company a deadline of January 19th. And then on January 19th, we got that notification popping up whenever we open TikTok. But if you've been following the news or you are on TikTok, like, the ban didn't last long. It was only for a couple hours, not even 24 hours. Nevertheless, prior to the retraction of the ban, or prior to the ban, many US creators whose livelihoods were on TikTok expressed their worries. If you're not a creator, you're not an influencer, if you're a viewer, the ban just means you have to move to a different app for your short form content. But for these content creators, these influencers, the ban is a significant disruption on their livelihoods. And what's alarming is that we're seeing
All right, I'm just pausing for the banana because she's a little long-winded, but let's let her
It
finish this.
sounds
Really?
like she's making the argument that people had a reason to object to what was genuinely a safety measure, because that this was how they make their living. But does she have that same sympathy for roughnecks who lost their jobs, because of bans on offshore oil drilling? Does she have
No.
that same sympathy for people who work in oil processing plants and people who work whose jobs were destroyed when Biden decided, what was the name of that pipeline that he decided was just not going to happen? The Keystone Pipeline.
Keystone?
Was it? Yeah, the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah, we haven't seen any admission about the United States bombing Nordstrom or being involved in the incident with the Nordstrom pipeline. But if that's the one underwater that was destroyed, but there's always been that suspicion that it was our three-letter agencies, right? But the Keystone Pipeline was Biden just flat out made an executive order and said this will not happen, and hundreds of men lost their jobs, possibly thousands, because there's the men who do that job directly, then there's the men who transport the oil, there's the men who work at the locations where the oil is going to be transported to, and so there's that cascading effect. But yeah, I wonder if she has sympathy for them, the same sympathy that she has for TikTok creators.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. All right, so yeah, let's listen to some more of this.
A glaring lack of empathy towards these creators. Before the ban was going to be in effect, like, we're all just waiting for it to happen. A lot of people are poking fun at the fact that now that TikTok's going to get banned, a lot of the influencers will now have to get a quote unquote real job. And this whole situation just shows that to this day, despite the valid economic impact of influencing still gets such a bad rap, with people claiming that it's not a real job or questioning how these people contribute to society. To quote a 2022 commentary written,
now she knows what it's like to be an actor or a radio personality
or somebody
or a
who's
singer, or
somebody who has a job that might be replaced by AI.
Yeah. What's the refrain that we all got told when roughnecks are losing their jobs and factory workers
Learn to
are
code?
being replaced? Yeah, learn to code. Everybody gets told to get a real job, right? As soon as your job is disposable in some way or another, it becomes not a real job to some segment of the population, and it's not very good phrasing for your job does not have the level of job security that some other jobs have. But if you're going to go into a job that doesn't have, because influencers can lose their jobs because they got canceled. All they have to do is use the wrong word once, or try a product and like it and tell everybody they like it, and then that product turns out to have some ingredient that it causes cancer, or the product doesn't do everything it says, or a lot of people are allergic to it, and the influencer has lost their influence. And if you lose your influence, you lose your job. And similarly with people who work in visual entertainment, If their physical appearance changes dramatically, something happens and they can't do that job anymore, they lose their job. When Julie Andrews had to have a surgery that affected the way that her vocal cords worked, it changed the work that she could do, right? And you could see it because she did a duet with Carol Burnett after that happened, and she no longer could hit the high notes. It was kind of heartbreaking because, you know, she's got a very beautiful voice that is fun to listen to, and she couldn't use it to its full extent anymore. But it also affected her in that way. I didn't hear her ever whine about it. You have to understand, like, I work as a direct support professional for intellectually disabled adults. Okay, the overwhelming majority of them have significantly impacting health problems. And if you focus entirely on one client, your client's age, your patient's age, the people that you work with, and just like working in a nursing home, people age out. Their health problems take them, or their age takes them, and they pass away, or they need care that you can't provide anymore. And you better be ready to go on to a new person and not be hung up on, I can't do this anymore because that person, or if there's not enough work for you, you better be ready to go to a different job. And that's just the way of life. So it's not that I don't feel sorry for influencers that might lose their jobs in that circumstance, but this is an outlook that men usually have with their jobs, right? What's your backup plan?
Yeah.
And a lot of times these different influencers don't have that backup plan. And it's because I think women are just not used to having to make the backup plan. Their guy is their backup plan. And you know, that you have to learn better, or when things like this happen, and they inevitably will, you're screwed.
Yep. Okay, well, let's do a bit more. How many time
All
codes
right.
do we have for this one?
Just a couple. I mean, I figure we only needed a couple per video.
Yeah.
So
No, that's
all right,
fine.
so we're gonna learn now why influencing is in particular important. Well, I think you guys can guess.
Value one industry, one form of labor, and we participate in devaluing that one industry, that one form of labor. We devalue all industries, all forms of labor performed by women. We devalue ourselves. And let me
Okay,
show you how.
what? So now influencing is just done by women?
Yeah,
There's a lot of male influencers out there.
Yeah,
They just
I'm
don't.
just thinking
they
that
don't count.
Most
they're
of
really
them
big
They don't
on
count.
female.
Yeah.
No, they don't count.
Okay. All right,
This is
so-
a woman thing. You guys got to stop coping. It's a woman thing. Women dominate. This is Manifestelle said so. Now that's just it. The women. Influencing is a woman's domain. Men are not
Also,
allowed. I mean,
who
they can't
gives a
compete
crap?
or something.
So some people are saying that your job isn't a job. Who gives a crap?
No. It has to be validated. It has to
Your
be
ego
understood to
doesn't
be
matter.
a not just like a legitimate job, but a really, really, really important one.
Yeah.
And that's even more important than the job itself paying anything, you see, is the status that comes with it. That's what really matters. That's
Well,
how you
that's
put food on the table and pay the rent and all that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Status.
no matter what you do, if you're making income, it's because somebody cares about it. Now, we can talk about the ethics of a lot of jobs out there and whether or not they're doing what they say they do,
Yeah.
or if they're exploiting things that maybe are unfortunate, like feminist NGOs. But ultimately, if you're being paid to do it, it's a job. If you have to pay
Yeah.
income tax, it's a job. Right. And it doesn't matter what randos on the internet say, because
Yep.
often that's motivated by jealousy. Who gives a crap? Like, you know. Okay, let's
Yeah.
keep.
You have to
keep
be
going.
able to shake that off.
Yeah.
All right.
Apparently,
do it.
influencing isn't a new thing. Influencing can actually be traced back to ancient civilizations where prominent figures and leaders influence public opinion and consumer behavior. For instance,
They just
Egyptian
didn't call it
pharaohs
that.
would adorn themselves with extravagant jewelry and luxurious
Okay,
attire, which would then
okay.
set trends for their subjects.
Yeah, so the pharaohs, you see, they affected their societies not because they were literally like, an avatar of their deity, but because they were influencers. That's what it was. A pharaoh is just an influencer, guys.
I'm
It's
gonna
not
put
like
it this way.
it's
I
not
think
like
that
the empress of Japan that made her teeth that had black teeth.
Somebody's got
Only calls other
Yeah.
women to get black teeth because she's an influencer and she has so many followers and got so many likes on her like
her black teeth.
ink on her drawings or whatever. No. It's not because she's like royalty and people were just like, I want to be like her because she's royalty, or I'm scared, so I'm afraid of their power, so I'm gonna emulate them. No. It's because they're influencers. They got a lot of likes and reposts.
The thing is, that she has a point. Throughout history, there have always been people that other people have looked to set the trends. They didn't always get paid for that, though. It wasn't their goal. It wasn't their profession. It was an effect of their profession. For example, we grew up with, Valley Girl speak, totally grody, grossed me out, gagged me with a spoon. People calling each other dude, I think, came out of that. And as you go through different movies throughout the whole Gen X time period of youth, there was a lot of movie lingo, movie slang that wasn't part of popular culture, popular slang, till after that movie came out. And you would see whole groups of people adopting it, right? Usually younger, but that's influence. And a lot of that influence had to do with how popular the stars were or how compelling the plot of the movie was and so on. It just wasn't the goal, right? They didn't make Valley Girl to get all the kids in the United States talking like they had an IQ of 3. They made Valley Girl to tell a story. And they didn't make Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure to get all of the kids in the country talking like they were high. They made it to entertain people. And entertainers and politicians and the wealthy and so on, they've always been, you could describe their effect as being influencers. But I think where she's making a mistake is that she's treating it as the same as people who make a job out of going on the internet and showing things to people and then becoming popular showing things to people, and it becomes their whole job showing things to people to get this to become popular, or showing things to people to get that to be popular, and they get paid for it. They're doing basically product placement. Like used to be done in movies. And product placement is a very lucrative business, by the way. And that's one of the reasons why we remember, E.T.'s candy, right? That was a big one. Commercials, E.T.'s candy, E.T.'s candy. There was a business deal around that, right? And another company turned that down and then kicked themselves for years afterward. And because I made the mistake of reading the E.T. book, I can't remember which one was which, M&M's or Reese's Pieces in the movie. The book was written based on the movie. It didn't originate, but I didn't know that when I read the book. So I thought, oh, this movie was great. I have to read the book. No, I didn't have to read the book. But yeah, those kind of things have existed throughout history. They just haven't been a profession throughout history. And I think in this day and age, we are seeing it become a profession. I don't know how long it's going to last, because we are already seeing AI replacing influencers. And I guess I'm going to repeat, influencers need a backup plan, because regardless of how things have been throughout history, and regardless of how things are now, the future does not look good for this. It doesn't it doesn't look good for anything that can be replaced by AI fakery.
Yeah, which means that our jobs are pretty safe, because AI is never going to go and say the stuff that we say. Not in a million
Not
years.
unless it's programmed to.
I'm
We
just
create
looking
our
at,
own honey badger AI.
I'm just looking at somebody, Reba Fluff, and he's throwing shade on this stream. I'm like, it's not a real job. I'm living life. Like, I'm doing my job and I'm scratching.
Sure, this is
dog a scratch.
not real beer.
Yeah.
I can't have real beer anymore because I'm a wimp with bad kidneys. So
I gotta see what my
and
dog
also this is not my main job. I work at night. I came home from a night shift last night that was 9 hours long. Took an hour nap, and then now I'm doing this. So you could go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my dog got into my garbage. Just stay away from the garbage. He came over for scritches. He came over for scritches. So for a while there, I was just sitting there listening to you, Hannah, and giving him a scritch. And then he's just like, oh, wait, I want to find something to crinkle. So what's in the garbage? But yeah, this is...
That's kind of what it's like checking the vertical chat.
Yeah, yeah, we always get something interesting in the vertical chat. Although we're not going to use much attention as we did last year. I think all the stuff around the election really had people moving around in there. But the other thing I wanted to point out was women who were influencers in past, not influencers, sorry, the women who were part of the aristocracy had an essential role to play in retaining the stability of their culture through this influence. They didn't just influence, like, oh, they wore great, like, beautiful jewelry. They were also expected to engage in charity and charitable works and be part of the intellectual scene. So they're supposed to patron the arts and do stuff like that. And also they were expected to advance their family's interests above their own. So like these women, they had a lot more to, and if the influences of their time didn't influence the culture in positive directions, it collapsed. That's something to consider as well.
Yeah.
That, they ended up being invaded by the Holy Roman Empire. But like this is there is an actual meritocracy to influencing. You got to influence the women below you to do things and engage in behaviors that support the system rather than destroy it. I'll leave it as an exercise to the viewer whether today's influencers are actually of the type that encourage positive participation in the culture or are actually destructive and chaotic elements, and not the good kind of chaos either. All right.
So we'll get into
just a mention for the Tide Pod challenge here. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, good Lord. All right.
So this section is we're getting into the gender dynamics of influencing. So we're gonna get a truth bomb here. Okay, so here we go.
Greek philosophers like Socrates and Plato exerted their influence through their philosophical beliefs and teachings, which undeniably shaped their society's norms and values. Even Marcus Aurelius still exerts his influence to this day. These people, Socrates, Plato, Marcus Aurelius, they were...
the word influencer is doing a lot of heavy lifting for this analogy. Like, it's just it's not because they were great men who therefore were followed for being great men. No. It's because they were hustling on whatever the ancient Greek version of TikTok was.
That would be street corners.
Yeah.
Street corners.
Carving on tablets. And even then it was
TikTok.
TikTok. All right. Anyway, I'm just saying. Imagine being Manifestelle and comparing her content to Marcus Aurelius. Just imagine thinking, oh, these are basically the same. I'm basically a philosopher king. I'm basically, Aristotle, because I'm on TikTok telling girls to get that bag while securing their own bag. I'm basically the same as fucking Nietzsche. I'm on par with these great thinkers. I'm basically the same, guys. So
well, she already that's a step down from comparing herself to a living god in the form of a pharaoh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, even then, right.
I think we need to call ego control because someone's ego is out of control. Anyway, let's go.
All right, anyway.
They're the intellectual influencers of their day. And they're still intellectual influencers today because people still read them today. And let me get on this one beef I have. I love the term intellectual influencer because there's people, especially on YouTube. I don't know why it's a YouTube thing. YouTubers don't like calling themselves influencers. They think they're above that. They're like, they have a little
What's it-
snooty factor when it comes to the term
Why would
influencers.
that
YouTube
be?
I mean, is that really elitist? Like,
Not really, no. If you don't like a particular label,
well, if you
for
don't
what you're
think
doing,
it fits, because like I
Yeah.
think of influencers as people who are like, you should buy these clothes, you should wear this makeup, you should listen to this music.
influencer
I'm
culture started on Instagram, not YouTube. It started with women showcasing their lifestyles and people going, "Oh, I like that blouse. Where did you get that blouse?" And enough people started buying things because this woman or that woman was wearing it, or using it, or eating it, or whatever. That companies started paying women to photograph or video themselves with these things and do reviews and so on, and it became lucrative. It didn't have anything like YouTube was a totally different story. The app, it was created specifically because people could not share videos on various platforms if they were copyrighted. It's kind of ironic now because YouTube steals from creators by paying companies that falsely claim copyright for content that is the creator's original content. And it's an actual major problem on YouTube for a lot of creators that create original music and original storytelling and stuff like that. There have been a lot of creators that have been hit by a couple of certain companies that skim, and there's not a very good appeal system for it. So it's a sort of come full circle from we're going to be the way around this problem to we are the problem. But it evolved through various, like, it was more meme culture and people trying to share their creativity with each other. And it wasn't about any of that, oh, I'm going to get paid to wear this shirt so that other people will want to buy this shirt. And stuff like that. Of course, YouTubers don't want to call themselves influencers. Influencer culture didn't evolve on YouTube. It hit YouTube eventually. There's a lot of makeup influencers on YouTube and stuff like that now. And there's a lot of political influencers on YouTube. But it was a culture that came into YouTube, not a culture that came out of YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, let's
okay, more.
yeah, more just maybe I don't know what benefit we're going to get out of this time code, but let's finish it.
All right.
YouTubers don't like calling themselves influencers. It's the same labor. We're going to get into why that is, okay? Like, I know people have theorized the differences between content creators and influencers, which is which, but I would say they're the same. And it's a special brand of misogyny to call women influencers, but men content creators. And women who shy away from the term
Who does
influencer
that?
because it is associated with
Okay, wait,
women. Like,
yeah, nobody does that.
Nobody does
hires
that.
it.
Nobody does that. Nobody is doing that, Manifestelle, except you right now. If men don't want to be called influencers, they want to be called content creators because they create content, which is influencing is getting people to buy shit, right? Yeah. Like, we are not here, for example, on this podcast to get people to buy shit. We're here to explain legal stuff, social realities that don't get play because they are, well, let's face it, the US government exports feminism, and we are the opposite. We are the anti whatever they're trying to export. So our stuff doesn't get a lot of play. So what do? We have these shows to talk about things that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody. Yeah. And that's not us saying, "Oh, I want you to buy something." Like, I mean, we canvass our audience to say, hey, do you want us to continue to talk about this stuff? Then please support us. But that's not the same. I mean, nobody's going to buy my scrubby old Navy jacket because I've been wearing it. Nobody's going to buy my welding goggles because, oh, I also have a migraine. Nobody's going to buy this cheap ass freaking toque. We're not influencing people to buy shit. right? And to extend to, like Brian was saying, using the word influence to create to do even more heavy lifting and saying Marcus Aurelius was an influencer is ridiculous. Marcus Aurelius wasn't getting people to buy shit either. Just use your term, be fine with it. I don't even think that Manifestelle is necessarily an influencer, because is she really getting people to buy shit? I mean, she's getting people to buy a stupid concept, but that's not the same as a consumer good. She's a content creator. Just be okay with that. And again, she's making victimhood where there is none. It's amazing how women like this can make victimhood everywhere. It's like their superpower.
That's the
Okay.
job. That's what they're selling. That's what they're selling. Okay.
Female creators who call themselves content creators instead of influencers and like really just shy away from that. And I was guilty of this, okay? Like we are deconstructing all of this in real time. I used to only call myself a content creator like
I'm not an influencer. Oh, no, I'm not an influencer.
because of the negative stigma against influencers. Like it's almost
So she's
embarrassing to tell people
projecting.
that you're an influencer.
She's projecting, basically. She's just explained that her original distaste for the term influencer was caused by negative connotations around it. Whereas I think a lot of people differentiate between content creators and influencers because not everybody has influence. And if you call yourself an influencer when you don't have any influence, you're kind of being stupid, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, she has influence. It's fair to call herself an influencer. It doesn't mean she's not a content creator, but that would be a subtype of content creator. So what she's complaining about is some people call themselves doctors and some people call themselves medical practitioners. Okay, some people are doctors. They are a subtype of medical practitioner. Other people are nurses aides, they're physical therapists, they're, other types of therapists. Like there's a whole spectrum of jobs within being a medical practitioner. Technically, I am a medical practitioner. I would never call myself a doctor because I don't do what doctors do. And I don't consider myself an influencer either, because if you look at the level of influence this woman has and the number of people who pay attention to what she says and does and imitate her every whatever, and you compare that to what I do, I would think it would be bullshit to call myself an influencer, right? I'm part of a community. And I think that's fair, being able to say it that way, right? I'm a content creator and I'm part of a community. Do I have some influence? A little bit, in comparison to this woman. In my community, there are other people who have significantly more influence, and I'm comfortable admitting that. And I think she's really upset with people that are comfortable admitting that about themselves. Right? I think that's the problem. Calling yourself an influencer, the negative connotation that goes with it is ego. And she's mad because she wants to be egotistical without being the only person in the room being egotistical. And if she's the only person in the room being egotistical, then all of a sudden she's a narcissist, right? Nobody wants to be called that. Nobody wants to be treated like a narcissist. So everybody else has to be a narcissist with her, or it's embarrassing and upsetting and there's stigma attached to it. And it's not fair to her, the narcissist who wants to be comfortable with her narcissism. That's why she's mad. And she's projecting that onto everybody else.
All right. Let me see.
I just felt like there was an alarming lack of doggo content.
And
So-
he is such a cutie pie.
Yeah, he's the true influencer here.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
Bork, bork.
Bork, bork, yeah. Hopefully that's not too
the
loud.
devaluation of women's labor. All right. 'Cause that's
Yeah, let's
important.
do
Oh,
it.
God.
Yeah.
I'll mute so you don't have to hear
Because
the
that's
bork.
ultimately what this is. Okay.
And why? It's because time and time again, it is so much easier and safer to hate on women. Like if people are going to hate, at least bring the same energy to people who do the exact same thing. And this gets us into the misogyny of it all. To quote a Substack article titled "The Hatred of Influencers is Gendered," there may be a legit reason why the image of influencers is so heavily female. If you think about it, who but a stay-at-home housewife is better equipped to put on an aspirational life on display for the rest of the world? We live in a society where women still make less than men, where it's still far more common to see a woman stay home to raise children. At most of the events, I'm one of one or two guys, which is fine. I love hanging out with women, but also shows that at least in the very visible home space, lifestyle influencers tend to skew female, which brings me to my whole theory about why influencers are so hated. It's seen as women's work, and we value female labor less than male labor, literally.
This guy's an idiot.
Yes. Don't sign off on this, Mr. Skimpsky. Like seriously, this is okay.
We value women's labor less than men's labor.
I work with men
while
who
we
don't get
complain
paid
about
which is what I do.
okay.
Like it's just this has been my experience my whole life, all right? Women in the feminist movement spend a lot of time telling me how much less I'm getting paid than the men around me. And then I compare notes. And when I am in the situation I'm in now, I have experience and work overtime that a lot of the guys don't. There's one guy that works overtime along with me, and he gets paid pretty close. Like we're pretty much the same in terms of getting paid. But I get paid more than a lot of the other women because I work more hours and also because I have experience. I came into the job with experience that they don't have. And I brought that from other healthcare jobs. And this is not gendered, right? This is how women do work and how women sell their work to their employer. What this guy is saying right here is essentially that if women don't do the same kind of work as a man, and if women don't sell their work to their employer as effectively as a man does, that it becomes sexist, and the reason automatically gets changed to because the work is seen as women's work when they don't get paid as much. Because feminism. When in reality, they just want to ignore all of the various dynamics that go into that. And when you look at studies on the so-called wage gap, what you find is that women don't work as many hours on average as men do, right? Women don't do the same tasks on average that men do. They don't take the same positions that men do. They don't work the same days that men do. A lot of women ask for weekends off. A lot of women won't work on the night shift. So instead of getting shift differentials, instead of getting extra pay for working on the weekend, instead of getting hazard pay for taking on the difficult and dangerous things, instead of getting incentive pay for taking on gross things that various jobs will actually cover because that's the only way to get people to do that job, right? Women take the office position, the sit-down position, the position where they're working with the easy consumer or the easy patient, and then they complain because they're not getting paid as much as the person who's earning hazard pay or other incentive pay or overtime pay or shift differentials, and then they say, well, it's because women's work isn't valued. No, it's because there are some things that you can't get people to do unless you offer them incentive pay. And the people who are more likely to put their sensibilities on the back burner and go do those things, or take the risk, gamble on whether they might get injured and go do those things, give up things they want in life to go do those things, are the people who have to pay the bills. And that's usually men. It has absolutely nothing to do with what is seen as women's work, and everything to do with what costs more to persuade people, will you please do this job for us?
Can I just point out that didn't we just do a video with her describing easier work as spoilt, girly women's work? And now she's talking about how women's work is less valued than men's work. Well, yes, because
Yeah.
women value their work less than men because they don't take it as seriously.
You
Right?
want to
They
do
want
lazy girl jobs, you don't
they
get to
want to
bitch
do
when you
lazy
get
girl jobs.
paid less.
They want to work at home and do multitasking and do their chores and their side hustles and everything else but the job that they're paid for. So you want to put that out there, people are going to value your work less as a woman. Like if you're literally say, well, I want, because I'm a woman, I want to work 1/4 that of a man. Well, people are going to value you less, your labor less, if you do 1/4 the work, period. So, and also this guy is just Simpy McSimperston. Please shut up.
Yeah.
Go simp elsewhere. All right, let's
This is Simpy McSimface.
yes.
Right.
I hope you guys are enjoying the extra doggo content.
The doggo has gone out of frame.
He'll be back in frame.
Okay.
I just have to throw the frisbee and then he'll go back in frame and you'll get to see him leap. He's a bit of a frenetic animal, shall we say. All right, let's
Yeah.
finish this off, Brian.
All right.
Statistics find that influencing is largely dominated by women, women making up 84% of social media influencers. And it's more than possible that influencing is being devalued and discredited simply because it's become a space for women by women. Vicky Seeger even goes as far to say, if influencer marketing started off dominated by men instead of women, this would be an entirely different business.
Okay, you have
And
to
she's
stop
not
there.
wrong.
You have to stop there. All right. I don't know what reason she's going to attribute to why that is true, but I will tell you this. Influencing started out as a female dominated industry because most marketing is done to sell things to women. And it's mostly done to sell things to women that women buy because they want them, not because they need them. This is a huge, huge difference between men and women that women don't understand. All right. Men have, throughout history, not been allowed to buy things they wanted until after they had covered the costs of things they needed, things their wives needed and wanted, and their kids needed and wanted. And then if there was some money left over, and if the thing they wanted was something that society wouldn't just condemn the shit out of them for wanting and having and using, they might get to buy things they wanted, especially if they could justify the reason they want it is because it makes their work easier, right? And that's always been the case for men. It's never been the case for women. It's always been the case for men. Women would have to be dirt poor before that they have that situation, right? As long as women have just a little bit of money, they buy things just because they want them. And they never actually consider whether their male partner gets to do the same. And when men do make purchases that they don't need for work and they don't need to fix their house with it, they don't need it for medical purposes, they don't need it because it's clothing, and it's something that they want for fun, like a game system or a more expensive car than they have to buy, or any set of clothing that is just for fun or anything like that. They get criticized for it. They get treated like self-indulgent children for just one little purchase like that, or even one major purchase that is going to be their entire source of entertainment for years, right? So, of course, influencing evolved around women. You can't. John Doe says guns. I'm not even sure guns can be put into the category of stuff that men buy just because they want them, because guns have a very solid, very responsibility-laden purpose. They're very heavy. They're not a lightweight purchase by any stretch of the imagination. And men get treated like babies for wanting them, even though the man is obligated to be the protector of in his home, right? So this idea that it's sexist that it evolved around women, or that it evolved a certain way because it's sexist for it to have evolved around women. No, the reality is women are cheap. Women will buy stuff on sale that is not as well made. Women will buy clothing that they're going to throw away next week. And they'll buy work clothing that isn't going to serve its purpose and may even get them in trouble at work, and then they'll complain about it, right? They'll buy things that they're never going to use because it looks cute, because it's interesting. And because they do that, they skimp on paying for things. Or they'll run up a huge credit card bill that their husband has to pay off. Whereas if a guy wants to buy something, it has to be functional. It has to be lasting. It's not something that he's going to throw away next week. It has to serve a purpose for him. It's got to be something he actually is going to use, and he's going to invest in it. And so if influencing evolved a certain way, that is not to be very lucrative because women do it. It's because women don't invest in things that women do the way that men invest in things that men do. And as a result, businesses that revolve around selling things to women for things that women do aren't going to be as lucrative as businesses that evolve around selling things for men that men do because of things that men do.
Okay,
and that makes sense.
And setting aside the relative lucrativeness of influencers versus everything else, we just went through a whole video on how Manifestelle basically said because she's a girl, she should get a lighter load, that she shouldn't have to work as hard as men, that she should have all kinds of concessions and be able to do multitasking and everything else. And so she wants to sit on being a girl, why she doesn't, as an explanation for why she doesn't have to labor as hard. But at the same time, she wants to be taken as seriously as men when they do jobs. Right? That's ridiculous. You either get special consideration to have to labor less as a woman, to have a work-life balance, to do a spoilt girly job, which is basically just leaning on everyone else and stealing money. All right? You either get that because you're a woman, but on the other hand, you don't get the respect of somebody who truly has to work for a living, who truly has to put in the effort. Okay? One or the other, not both. Of course, you're going to ask for both. You're going to ask for to be given the lighter load. You're going to ask to carry 20 pounds when a man is carrying 200. And at the end of the day, you want to get credit for carrying 200 pounds too. That's what this is.
And get paid for it.
Well, you don't get that with anybody with a lick of common sense. So basically, she's saying people with common sense are saying, I don't work as hard when I don't work as hard. Well, yeah. Too bad. Until the U.S. deep state outlaws common sense, you're going to be subject to it. Okay, let's. How many more time codes are left?
I mean, like the only thing that's left is there's a section called empowerment through influencing. So she's already covered the devaluation of women's labor and the societal perception of influencers. So I mean, you want me to just, that's basically the last bit.
Yeah, sure. Society. So
right.
Okay. Fine.
No, it's empowerment through influencing. Okay.
Okay, so simultaneously influencers are treated as lesser, but it's also empowering. Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Yep, because it's labor, it's work.
Recognize it as work, like it is labor. It is an industry. And it's valid, and it supports a lot of people, and it supports the economy. And like on a more societal scale, we can challenge the outdated notion of women's work that it's less valuable, it's less important, and therefore should not be compensated at all, and that women should do it for free.
You make the stuff that you're influencing people to buy? No.
What?
Does she make
understand what jobs are for?
That is, she's in like influencers. Do they make the stuff that they're influencing people to buy? Okay, so who do you think is more important in this relationship? The influencers or the people creating the stuff that they sell? I mean, I guess you could say the influencers are giving them jobs too. But seriously, like, and also like you're influencing people to make splurge on consumer products that they don't necessarily need. I mean, just be happy with what you are. You are an essential service. You're probably not doing that much. Well, maybe you're doing stuff for the products that you sell. But, it's just like, just be happy with what you are.
I would say she doesn't understand what jobs are for. And the reason I'd say that is because her argument for why influencers should get paid more isn't that they are providing value to the viewer.
Did she argue that?
To people influenced, yeah. And it isn't because they're providing value to the sellers that are asking them demonstrate this product, show this, or whatever. In the case of influencers that are basically advertisers, it isn't because their content is, in other words, needed by people and bringing value to people. It's because of their effect on the economy. All right. This is very similar to women arguing that they should get paid more in the workplace than they do because of what they do for themselves at home and that it provides value in the home. Your employer doesn't owe you anything for that. Your job exists. Whatever you do exists to provide a value for the source of your income. Your employer, your audience, your advertisers, whatever. All right. If you're not providing that value, they don't have a reason to pay you more money. Right? It's not these companies and your viewers and so on. They're not in the business of paying you to make the economy move. Even if you contribute to that, that's not the job description, and it's not why the money is coming in. So presenting it as a reason why you should get more money is unreasonable and irrational. Just like your work that you do at home for yourself is not the reason why the factory that you work at or the retail outlet that you work at pays you, right? They're expecting the value of you doing the tasks that they hired you to do. And presenting your housework as a reason why you should get paid more is unreasonable and irrational. And this is why I use the term accountability gap to describe women's failure to understand. Men understand that. They have had to have that understanding throughout history. Women have not had to have that understanding throughout history. They are not accountable for it. They haven't been accountable to their employers, and they haven't been accountable to their families as breadwinners. And so there is a gap, just like the so-called wage gap. Only the accountability gap is real. Men have been noticing it for centuries. They've been talking about it in print media for at least a century, probably also 4 centuries. And that's the best name I could think of to use as a shortcut instead of describing the phenomenon every time I wanted to talk about it. If that makes sense?
Yep. Okay, so I didn't realize that she was asking for more money because it's like,
yeah, that's basically she's complaining about how little influencers
she wants to
make.
freaking socialize influencing. Like, yeah, take off, Hoser. No, because that's going to destroy it. Because the truth is, it has to be a competitive sort of thing. Otherwise, what's the point of it, right? You got to be an influencer who influences more. Otherwise, like it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Okay, yeah. I'm working. And my work is not just throwing the frisbee for you. But regardless, it's just who's paying me for that? You're not paying me to do that. You're not paying me to throw this frisbee. This is frisbee throwing pay gap here. All right. So is this is the final one, is it, Brian?
Yeah.
Are we in the home stretch? Is there anything further
I think
that
so.
you would like us to address?
I mean, we could play the rest of this clip and then leave it at that, okay?
Everyone else benefiting from their labor. Like the same has been done to caregiving and childcare, and they're doing it to influencing too. Like the devaluation of women's labor is a huge problem. And when we assign the proper value to women's labor, to women's industries, and recognize them as legitimate jobs, we affirm women's power to inspire, innovate, lead,
and even shape recognition.
Industries.
She doesn't understand that it is a trade. It's a she doesn't understand what it's for.
But what's for?
what pay is for. She doesn't
Oh, it's
understand
just
that it's
yeah, go
a
ahead.
trade, that you're buying labor, and when you do labor for a job, you're selling labor to your employer. She doesn't seem to have a grasp on that very basic fact.
And they vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're giving them access to the reins of society. And this is someone who has 250,000 female pairs of eyeballs on her, listening to every word, saying, "Oh, I gotta be a Manifestelle girly."
I thought you were
And
going to say female parasites, and I was going to laugh.
seriously, they're looking at this and they
Uh.
think this is the way to be. And we give them more and more and more and more power over the work world. And they fundamentally do not understand that what you're talking about, Hannah. They
Yeah.
don't
Mhm.
understand merit. They don't understand the concept of giving value in exchange for money. And they don't understand that influencers already get probably more than what they deserve in terms of their actual benefit to society. Like, they don't understand any of that. None of it.
Yeah, she doesn't understand that it's a trade. She doesn't understand that pay isn't just an expression of esteem for the employee, right? And she also doesn't understand what makes work valuable to the employer.
Yeah.
This explains a lot.
Doesn't understand any of this. And she's
Yeah.
also, but she compares herself to Marcus Aurelius. Oh, good Lord. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
This is probably
And I love
gonna
this
have to be the
question
last
posed by
one.
this article, which was written as an open letter to female influencer. Can society stomach women who not only take up space, but also define its parameters, thriving unapologetically in a domain they've masterminded themselves? I have another story for you. So I was
You
scrolling on my
didn't
screen
Wait,
reels.
go
mastermind
back to that. Can you put that back
influencing.
up on the screen? Like, what she said there is so dumb.
Is it not
Hold
even
on,
dumb?
hold on, hold on.
Parameters,
no.
thriving unapologetically in a domain they've masterminded themselves.
All right. What she said there is so dumb that I think I lost IQ points hearing it.
Yeah,
Right?
there's multiple
Mhm.
dumb things.
So, first of all, nobody gets upset at women for taking up space. We are not allowed even to criticize women when one of them takes up the space of two people, right? To the degree that even people who are savvy about that are uncomfortable acknowledging when women take up more space than they're entitled to. Or, like, I called myself fat. Yes. So for the record, for the listeners, I'm autistic. It's not an insult to me if I call myself fat. It's me stating a fact, and it doesn't bother me. I just bought a gym membership because I don't like the effects on my health from being fat, right? So I called myself fat yesterday, and poor Mike was uncomfortable hearing me call myself fat because he thought it meant I felt bad about myself, and we don't let women feel bad about themselves. All right. I feel terrible about being fat because it hurts my ass. Literally, that's the problem. All right. That's as bad as I feel about it. Right. But if I was a feminist and somebody else called me fat, if I sat next to somebody on an airplane and the seat was this wide and I'm taking up this much space, right? And I complain because they're in my way, as a woman, I am coddled for expecting that special treatment. And if a man is sitting next to me and I'm taking up part of his seat and he complains, he gets treated like shit for it, even though he paid for that whole seat, not to share it with me. Right? So this idea that women can't take up space, we get complaints from women about men sitting with their knees more than a few inches apart on the bus. Women who will carry 6 bags into the bus and take up the whole, aisle of seats, both sides for 6 rows or whatever with all their shit. Oh no, this guy is taking up a seat all by himself because his feet are too far apart and only a thin person can sit next to him, not a fat person. Or on the train, that's like taking up a whole bench with her bags or putting her feet up. and then getting upset because a guy sits with his knees more than an inch apart. It's bullshit. But that alone, that's not the worst of it, right? Thriving unapologetically. Who gets mad at anybody for thriving?
Nobody.
Right? Who gets mad? Women. Women
Nobody.
get jealous and they get angry.
I
when
guess
men
you're
thrive.
right. Mm-hmm.
Women get jealous and they bitch about it, right? So
because they
if
think they're
she's-
entitled to some portion of it.
if she's got a complaint, she should take it up with her followers, because that's probably who's bitching about any thriving issue. And then a domain they've masterminded themselves. All right. So
Women invented advertising. Did you know?
advertising would not exist if men didn't make things for women to buy.
Well, if men didn't invent the
And
advertising,
men
too, they
didn't
would.
invent things for women to want. And yeah, men invented advertising. Although marketing is largely a female dominated industry these days until you get into certain higher echelons, which is why you get like the dumbest of the dumb advertising campaigns at the store level quite frequently. But yeah, this
But here's
idea that this is something that men have done to women or that it's sexist is bullshit.
okay. I think we should. I honestly doubt that there's going to be anything further after this, Brian. Yeah, no,
No.
he's shaking his head. So I'm just going to conclude with this. Now everybody's checked out, but I've used the evil C word, the truly evil C word. But okay, you're thriving. Then why do you need more money?
Yeah.
Like, why are you saying that you're undervalued? That influencers are undervalued and need to get influencer welfare? Like, why do you? If you're thriving, go thrive. All right. If you're thriving, don't ask for shit. Right. Okay. There you go. Thrive. And those who thrive shall not request more crap for themselves. Right. Okay. I'm acknowledging you're thriving. Emily Valentine Parr, you are thriving. Therefore, do not ask for anything from anybody else. Okay. That's how it works.
We've
Right.
come full circle to Brian's joke about Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
Because this is Eve in the Garden of Thriving, looking at her followers and in all seriousness saying, it really isn't enough, is it?
Yeah. Never is enough. All right. So I
Yep.
do have a thank you to give, which is absolutely enough. Richard Beer, completely unrelated, has dropped $1,000 into the kitty. So thank you, Richard
Ooh.
Beer.
I am still here. I hope that this. Oh yeah, it's coming back. Yeah, you're back. You're back. Yeah.
Ask me, is it masochism or learning to like Manifestelle? No, I don't like Manifestelle. I do not like her, Sam. I am. But she is bullshit, and my job is to shovel it. So I do my job. That's the end. That's the final analysis. And the problem is that she has a shit ton of followers, and compared to the other spoiled girly or female dating strategy streamers, she actually is at least somewhat intelligent. Or not intelligent. What is the word for it? She varies her content with
Articulate.
different
Yeah.
topics.
Savvy. She's a bit
She's a little more
savvy.
savvy. So she because she has different topics. For last week, we did a topic on romance novels with Karen because she's a romance writer. This week we did the female dating strategy, more of the female dating strategy stuff, because Hannah has actually been you on Reddit. You've been watching the female dating strategy stuff, and you've been
Well, I
investigating
was. They privated their subreddit quite a
their
while ago.
ass.
Yeah. So you have to actually join the subreddit to get in. And I would have to create a new account because my original account, which for a long time was shadow banned, but is no longer by surprise for some reason, that account is banned in all of the feminist subreddits because I posted in the men's rights subreddit for so long. And if
Of
you
course.
post in the men's rights subreddit, there's a whole laundry list of subreddits that ban you from their subreddits. And that subreddit is one of them. So yeah, it would actually take me quite a bit. But when I was monitoring it, what I basically saw was it was mostly women complaining about what terrible people men are, how useless they are, how boring they are, how worthless they are, what assholes they are, what clods they are, how predatory they are, how unattractive they are, how everything they do is wrong and everything they say is wrong and everything they think is wrong, and how to get them to want to be with women in that particular subreddit. It reminded me of that stupid joke in Annie Hall about the restaurant being terrible because the food was awful and the portions were way too small. It's like, yeah, you definitely want more if the food is awful. Men are awful. How can we get them to date us? We hate those fuckers. How can we
get more of their money?
into relationships with them? And it is all about, they refer to certain men as high value, but they still consider them to be beneath the women in the subreddit, not equal partners. They still consider them to be walking wallets and workhorses and pets that must be kept on a leash or they will behave inappropriately. They don't see men as human beings and they don't care about them. They just want somebody to pay half the bills.
Yeah.
Or more.
Well, actually, from what I've seen of the female dating strategy, they regard a high value man to be a man who would essentially be wanted by all of their girlfriends and every woman in like a 10-mile radius, but at the same time not act like he has choices. So they essentially want somebody who doesn't exist. That's what they would consider a high value man. But the other thing is that I noticed how much a high value man basically just fixes them. Like they fixes every problem that they have. So instead of them fixing themselves or learning to be a better person or learning to have better skills or making more of an effort in their life, they just think a man's going to come in and fix me. So simultaneously with holding men in complete contempt, they seem to think that men should have godlike powers of being able to save them.
Yeah.
It has to be, it should be in the DSM as like some kind
mental
of
illness.
B mental illness. But anyway,
to be fair,
and
going in there for me was a lot like trying to scope out the planet Venus, which has an acidic environment, no oxygen, and acid rain and high winds, and just completely inhospitable. It was such an alien set of thought processes for me that I just going in and reading their shit was amusing until I thought about it, right? And then thinking about it, it made me sick and sad. So I'm not too upset that it's inaccessible to me now.
Yeah,
even though it's just kind of like a relief. Oh, good, I can't look at that anymore.
It's like going into a cave and you see these women and they're sawing off and eating their own feet and they're calling it empowerment, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna do a U-turn. I'm gonna walk out of this sad.
I don't know what I walked into, but y'all do your thing.
Yeah, you all do your thing. Surely you don't need those feet. A man will carry you for you. A high value man. All right. So anyway, if you want to send a comment at any time after the show is over, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated. Try to do it on these shows, not necessarily the shows that Brian does on his channel, because it gets a little confusing in terms of finances. Maybe there's a way to figure out a tip option for Brian alone. But regardless, for now, feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to comment on these shows, and we will get to it at the next reasonably similar show, I suppose. And if you would like to help the show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. Big thank you again to Richard Bier for that support. I hope he appreciated this episode and its content. And so back to you, Brian. If you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah. No, that's good. I think you guys have given Manifestelle a good rogering. So I'm just going to end it there. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we will talk to you guys in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.